Most men waste their strength chasing illusions, validation, approval, comfort. But true power does not lie in appeasing the world. It lies in mastering yourself until no man, no woman, no circumstance can bend you. Today, I will show you how to become the strongest version of yourself, unshakable, untouchable, and feared. The path to strength is not gentle, nor is it adorned with applause. It is carved from solitude, struggle, and the ruthless discipline of the mind. To become strong is not to grow muscles or wear titles. It is to become a fortress of willpower, impenetrable to flattery, resistant to fear, immune to the chains of society. Look around you. Men are enslaved by opinion, women by desire, leaders by their own vanity. The strongest version of yourself is forged by escaping these traps. And like the princes of old, you must learn not to live as others tell you to, but as necessity demands. This is the art of becoming untouchable. What is the difference between a ruler and a slave? It is not wealth, nor armies, nor crowns. It is mastery over desire. Most men believe they are free. But watch them closely. Their every step is governed by appetites. Food, lust, comfort, validation, pleasure. Remove these, and they collapse like a puppet with cut strings. Tell me, what use is ambition if it drowns in indulgence? What use is intelligence if it bows before cravings? A man ruled by his appetites is like a kingdom ruled by corrupt advisors. Chaotic, weak, and destined for betrayal. Consider the rulers of Rome. Caesar conquered nations, yet even he fell, surrounded by men who understood his hunger for power and exploited it. His brilliance was undeniable, but his desires made him predictable. His enemies sharpened daggers not against his strength, but against his vulnerabilities. And you, do you believe yourself any different? The merchant knows you cannot resist a discount. The lover knows the right words to unlock your heart. The politician knows you will obey if he feeds your fear or flatters your pride. Every force in the world seeks to pull at your appetites, like strings tied to a marionette. Do you see now why I say mastery over desire is the foundation of strength? Because when you are ruled by nothing, you cannot be manipulated by anything. Let me tell you something cruel, but true: your desires make you weak. Not because desire itself is evil, but because it makes you predictable. And predictability is the death of power. Imagine a general on the battlefield. If the enemy knows he will always take the easiest route, he is already defeated. Likewise, if your opponent knows what you crave, he can trap you with bait. How many men have destroyed themselves for lust? How many leaders have ruined empires because they could not control greed? How many of your own choices have been nothing more than responses to temptation? The Greeks understood this. The Stoics preach control not for morality's sake, but for freedom. To them, the man who can dine on bread and water with the same calm as a feast is untouchable. He cannot be bribed, seduced, or blackmailed, for his needs are minimal and his spirit unshaken. But let us go deeper. Desire does not only live in the body, it festers in the mind. You crave recognition. You hunger for validation. Even now, perhaps, you want approval for listening to these words. And this is precisely where most fall. They do not live for themselves, but for the eyes of others. Every action becomes a performance. Every decision, a plea to be noticed. Ask yourself this: if tomorrow no one could see your life, no one could praise you, no one could applaud, would you still live the same way? If the answer is no, then you are still a prisoner. The strong man, the sovereign of himself, is unmoved by applause. He does not shape himself to be liked. He shapes himself to be formidable. And the irony: those who no longer need approval become the very ones most admired, most envied, most followed. History is filled with such men. Spartans who lived with nothing, yet commanded fear across nations. Monks who abandoned comfort, yet became immortal in influence. Even tyrants, brutal and cunning, gained loyalty because they showed discipline greater than those they ruled. But look around today. What do you see? People trapped by glowing screens, enslaved to scrolling, feeding addictions that keep them docile. Societies ruled not by kings, but by their own cravings. Bread and circuses still rule the masses, just as they did in Rome. The tools have changed, But the principle remains: keep men distracted with pleasure, and you may control them forever. So what, then, must you do? You must turn the knife inward, deny yourself deliberately. Not because asceticism is noble, but because discipline is power. Skip the indulgence and taste the sharpness of hunger. Silence the craving for praise and feel the calm of indifference. Each time you resist, you weaken the chains others place upon you. Each time you conquer an appetite, you fortify your throne within. Think carefully. If your enemy cannot tempt you, cannot flatter you, cannot frighten you, what weapon remains against you? None. And that is strength in its purest form. But mastery over desire is only the beginning. For once you have subdued your appetites, you must then turn to the second truth, how to see the world not as you wish it, but as it is. And that, my friend, is where the true game of power begins. Why do so many men fail, even when they begin with strength, ambition, or vision? Because they see the world not as it is, but as they wish it to be. This is the first great mistake. Illusion blinds, reality cuts, and those who confuse the two walk willingly into traps. Look carefully at the people around you. How many live on hope? How many build their lives on promises, dreams, fantasies? They tell themselves lies. That woman loves me. My friends are loyal. My leaders have my best interest at heart. And with each comforting thought, they bind their own hands. But ask yourself, what if the truth is colder? What if love fades? What if loyalty bends under pressure? What if leaders care more for their power than for your survival? Would you rather cling to illusions or arm yourself with truth? The strongest do not wish for reality to be kind. They strip it bare. They study its cruelty, its selfishness, its hunger. And in seeing it clearly, they learn how to move within it. Consider the fall of Constantinople. The Byzantines believed that their walls, their history, their God would protect them. They trusted illusions more than cannons. Mimid the Conqueror saw the world as it was. Stone crumbles before firepower. And he won. Which man do you think was free? The one who prayed to be saved, or the one who acted with cold realism? Even in the smallest matters, illusion destroys. A man who believes every friend is loyal is easily betrayed. A ruler who believes every subject is virtuous is quickly overthrown. And you, yes, you, if you believe that people act from love or kindness rather than self-interest, you will always be used. But let me ask you this. Is it not easier to believe the lie? Is it not comforting to imagine that the world is fair, that life has meaning, that people are good? Of course it is. That is why most cling to fantasy. They wrap themselves in hope like a blanket, never realizing that this comfort is the very chain that binds them. The cold eye of realism requires courage. The courage to say, yes, people are selfish. Yes, betrayal is common. Yes, life is not fair. And then to smile and use this knowledge as a weapon. Do you know what happens when you accept this? You become dangerous, because illusions no longer trap you. You are not surprised when someone lies, you expect it. You are not broken when loyalty fails, you anticipated it. You are not blinded by promises, you measure them against interest and gain. The lion who believes the deer will run into his jaws goes hungry. The lion who studies the wind, the herd, the terrain and strikes when reality favors him. That lion eats. So too must you act. Think of modern life. Advertising tells you happiness is in possessions. Politicians tell you safety is in their hands. Lovers tell you they will never leave. Friends tell you they will always be there. Do you accept these words? Or do you measure actions, interests, and motives? Realism is not cynicism. It is strategy. A cynic rejects hope entirely. A realist uses hope as a tool. A cynic sees only betrayal. A realist sees betrayal coming and places himself to benefit from it. When you look at someone, do not ask, what do they say? Ask instead, what do they want? Every word, every smile, every gesture hides an interest. The man who flatters you seeks advantage. The woman who adores you seeks fulfillment. The ally who swears loyalty seeks gain. None of these are sins, they are simply reality. And if you understand this, you are free. Because instead of being shocked, you are prepared. Instead of being used, you can use. Instead of being deceived, you can deceive. The cold eye of realism is a weapon sharper than any blade. It allows you to walk through the world not as prey, but as predator. It allows you to build power not on sand, but on stone. It strips away weakness, sentiment, and illusion, leaving only clarity. So I ask you, when you wake tomorrow, will you open your eyes to the world as it is? Or will you continue dreaming, like a child asleep in the dark, hoping the shadows hold no monsters? For make no mistake, the monsters are there. And only the realist sees them clearly enough to tame them. Once you see reality as it is, another challenge rises: how to speak, or rather, how not to speak. For silence itself can be a weapon sharper than words. Why do you speak? Is it to inform, to persuade? Or is it, as it often is, to soothe your own anxiety? Most people speak too much. They reveal their plans. They expose their weaknesses. They surrender power with every unnecessary word. And yet silence terrifies. It unsettles. It forces the other to fill the void, to reveal themselves while you remain concealed. Consider the interrogator. When he asks a question and then waits in silence, what happens? The guilty man grows restless. He stumbles over words, offering details not demanded. The silence itself becomes a blade, cutting deeper than questions ever could. So too in life. In debate, in negotiation, in intimacy, he who controls silence controls the frame. Have you ever noticed? The one who talks least in a room commands the most attention. People lean in, they watch, they wait. Why? Because silence is rare. In a world drunk on noise, the one who withholds words becomes an enigma. And mystery is power. History offers lessons. Think of Cardinal Richelieu. He was a master of pauses, of calculated restraint. While others drowned the king in speeches, Richelieu let silence stretch until his words carried the weight of law. A single phrase, delivered after a pause, had more power than an hour of chatter. Julius Caesar, too, understood this. He spoke less than his rivals in the Senate, yet his silence forced others to guess his intentions. When men must guess, they imagine. And imagination magnifies fear more than truth ever could. Now ask yourself, how often do you give away your position too soon? Do you rush to explain yourself? Do you fill silences with nervous chatter, hoping to appear agreeable? If so, you hand over power before the game has even begun. Learn instead to hold your tongue, to let others speak until they expose their motives, to watch their discomfort as silence grows heavy. In that stillness, they reveal far more than you ever could. But silence is not merely withholding words. It is a weapon of timing. A pause before answering creates suspense. A refusal to reply creates dominance. An unreadable silence creates fear. Think of negotiations. A merchant offers a price. You say nothing. The silence stretches. He grows nervous and lowers it. You still say nothing. He lowers it again. Your silence has earned you victory without effort. Think of relationships. When you withdraw words, you force the other to chase. The lover wonders what you think, why you are quiet, what you feel. Your silence consumes their mind more than 1,000 declarations ever could. This is the paradox: words can be forgotten, but silence lingers. It gnaws at the imagination. It forces others to project their fears and hopes onto you. In doing so, you control them without lifting a finger. But beware, silence must be deliberate. The silence of a fool is emptiness. The silence of the strategist is thunder waiting to strike. You must learn when to speak and when to withhold. Say little, but when you speak, strike with precision. Every word must serve a purpose: to command, to persuade, to wound. Anything else is weakness disguised as expression. Do not mistake this for passivity. Silence is not surrender. It is the patience of a hunter crouched in the dark, letting the prey wander closer. When the moment comes, your words land with the force of inevitability. Even in modern times, this principle holds. The leader who does not respond to every insult appears stronger than the one who lashes out. The negotiator who remains unmoved by persuasion forces concessions. The man who does not reveal his emotions controls those who cannot hide theirs. So ask yourself again, do you speak because it is necessary, or because silence frightens you? The weak fear silence because it mirrors their emptiness. The strong embrace silence because it multiplies their presence. To master silence is to master perception. And perception, more than reality, governs power. Remember this: your enemies can resist your arguments, dismiss your words, mock your speeches, but they cannot fight the storm that silence plants in their imagination. And yet, silence alone is not enough, for life will not only test your patience, it will test your endurance. Pain, loss, and suffering will come. And then you must decide, will you run from it, or will you turn pain itself into your sharpest weapon? What do you fear most? Pain, not death, not failure, not poverty. At the root of all fear lies pain. And yet, what most dread, the strong transform into their sharpest weapon. You have been taught to avoid pain, to numb it, to flee from it at the first sting. Doctors prescribe pills. Society prescribes distractions. Friends tell you to move on. But none of this creates strength. It creates weakness. Soft men, untested, fragile at the first strike of reality. Understand this: pain is not an enemy. Pain is the forge. And you, if you are wise, will step into the fire willingly. Look to history. Spartans were raised in suffering. As children, they were torn from mothers, trained in cold, hunger, and discipline. Why? Because a man accustomed to pain cannot be broken by it. When war came, the Spartan was already married to suffering, while his enemies still trembled at its touch. Rome too understood this. The legions marched through deserts, through snow, enduring what softer men would call unbearable. That endurance became empire. It was not comfort that built Rome, but resilience carved through hardship. Now compare this to the modern man. He curses the smallest inconvenience. He seeks escape at the first discomfort. His spirit collapses at rejection, at criticism, at loneliness. And you wonder why he is powerless. Pain unmasks you. It shows whether your foundations are stone or sand. But here lies the secret: if you embrace it, you can use it. Ask yourself, how many times have you grown only after being hurt? How many lessons have been branded into your mind by suffering? Would you have remembered them so deeply without the sting? No, comfort teaches nothing. Pain teaches everything. Psychology confirms this. The brain sears painful experiences into memory, ensuring they are not forgotten. The child who burns his hand never again touches the flame so carelessly. The betrayed lover, if wise, learns to read deception in the smallest gesture. The man who loses everything learns the true value of control. This is why you must not run from pain. You must harvest it. Take betrayal. Most respond with despair, with self-pity. But the strategist takes note. He asks, how did I miss the signs? What weakness invited the betrayal? The pain becomes instruction, sharpening perception, making the next betrayal impossible. Take failure. Most collapse ashamed. But the ruthless man examines it like a surgeon examines a wound. Where did I miscalculate? What flaw was revealed? He uses pain as a map, showing him where to fortify, where to strike next. Even physical pain can be transformed. Athletes know this. Soldiers know this. Push beyond the discomfort, and the body adapts. What was once unbearable becomes routine. And the same is true for the mind and the spirit. But here is the greater truth. Pain not only strengthens you, it weakens others. Because while you embrace it, they run from it. Your threshold rises. Theirs diminishes, and in this imbalance lies power. Imagine a negotiation. Who wins? The man who fears discomfort, or the man who can endure silence, tension, and hostility without flinching? Imagine war. Who endures? The soldier who panics at hunger, or the one who treats hunger as nothing but another companion? Imagine life itself. Who thrives? The one who flees pain, or the one who bends it into fuel? This is why rulers often inflicted hardship on their people before testing them in war. Not to punish, but to prepare. They understood that only those who have suffered can be trusted with survival. You must apply the same principle to yourself. Inflict discipline. Train in discomfort. Seek challenges deliberately. Not because suffering is noble, but because it is useful. The man who can endure what others cannot is the man others cannot defeat. So when pain comes to you, do not curse it. Do not flee from it. Ask instead, what can this teach me? How can I use this to become untouchable? For one day, you will face enemies who are stronger, richer, more connected. But if their spirit is soft, and yours has been tempered by suffering, you will outlast them. And in the end, survival is the truest victory. So I ask you, will you remain a slave to pain, always fleeing, always begging for comfort? Or will you seize it, master it, and wield it against all who stand before you? For once you have weaponized pain, another illusion must be destroyed, the greatest addiction of them all, the hunger for approval. Why do you live the way you do? Think carefully. Is it for yourself, or is it for the eyes that watch you? Most men are not guided by principle or strategy. They are puppets, pulled by the invisible strings of approval. Every word they speak, every choice they make, every step they take is dictated by one question: what will others think of me? This is slavery in its most subtle form. Chains not of iron, but of opinion. You may believe you are free, but notice how your mood rises with praise and collapses with criticism. Notice how quickly you shift to fit the expectations of the crowd. One moment bold, the next apologetic. One moment confident, the next desperate for reassurance. Ask yourself, if applause vanished tomorrow, would you still live the same way? Or would your identity collapse into silence? Understand this: the hunger for approval is the greatest weakness of man. Because it makes him predictable, and the predictable can always be controlled. History offers examples. Consider the Roman emperors. Those who ruled for the favor of the mob, Nero, Commodus, were consumed by it. They staged spectacles, desperate for cheers. They mistook applause for strength. And in the end, both fell to conspiracies, betrayed by those who saw through their vanity. Now look at Marcus Aurelius. He wrote to himself, not to impress others, but to master his own mind. He did not seek validation from the mob. And because of this, he endured where others faltered. When your worth is not tied to opinion, you cannot be swayed by it. Even conquerors knew this truth. Alexander sought glory, yes, but he was not trapped by the need for approval. His men adored him, but he could abandon them when necessity demanded it. He pursued vision, not applause. And that is why his shadow stretched across the world. Now turn to yourself. How many times have you betrayed your own values just to be accepted? How often have you agreed when you wished to oppose? How often have you stayed silent, not out of strategy, but out of fear of rejection? Every time you bend for approval, you hand over power, and those who recognize your weakness will exploit it. The manipulator flatters you, knowing you crave praise. The seducer withholds affection, knowing you crave attention. The tyrant threatens isolation, knowing you fear disapproval. This is why the strong detach from validation, not because they reject recognition, but because they are not dependent on it. They use it, but they do not need it. Imagine a man unmoved by criticism. He does not flinch when mocked. He does not beg when scorned. The mob shouts, but he walks on unbent. What weapon could you use against him? None. Now imagine a man unmoved by praise. He accepts admiration with the same calm as insult. He does not grow arrogant when flattered. He does not soften when adored. What leash could you place upon him? None. This is the secret of detachment. To stand firm whether you are exalted or despised. To act according to strategy, not opinion. Psychology confirms what rulers have always known. The human brain is addicted to social approval. Dopamine fires at every like, every compliment, every sign of belonging. This is why societies are so easily controlled. Feed the masses approval, and they will kneel. But you, if you are to be strong, must break this addiction. For the man who governs himself cannot be governed by others. How then do you begin? Expose yourself to disapproval. Speak your mind and endure the backlash. Choose paths that invite criticism. With each act you build immunity. Until one day you no longer fear the frown or the whisper. And here lies the irony. Once you no longer need approval, you will attract it more than ever. Because men admire what they cannot control. They envy the one who stands apart, untouchable by opinion. Your detachment becomes a magnet, drawing respect, fear, and even devotion. But do not be fooled. Detachment is not indifference. It is strategy. You do not reject approval, you simply refuse to serve it. You accept it when useful, discard it when not. And in doing so, You rule over those still enslaved to it. So I ask you, will you remain a prisoner to the cheers and jeers of the crowd? Or will you free yourself, standing sovereign, unmoved by their fleeting noise? For once you have broken the chains of approval, another test awaits. Not silence, not pain, not validation, but the ruthless courage to cut away illusions and strike when necessity demands it. Power is never given, it is taken, and the most effective way to take it is invisibly. The greatest chains are those the prisoner does not feel. The finest manipulations are those the victim believes are their own choices. When people think they are free, they obey most willingly. Ask yourself, do you want control that is seen and resisted, or control that is unseen and absolute? The open tyrant inspires rebellion. The silent strategist inspires loyalty while bending others to his will. This is the art of ruling hearts and minds. Not through force alone, but through illusion. Not through commands, but through influence. Not through exposure, but through shadows. Remember, those who master hidden control rarely lose it. Those who neglect it lose everything. Now, I want to hear from you. Comment your thoughts below. How would you use these strategies? Subscribe if you want more Machiavellian truths that strip away illusions. And share this video with those who believe they cannot be controlled. Let them learn how wrong they are.